Hi, okay, so my presentation is on the effect of trauma on memory, and I just want to put out a disclaimer that if you're someone who suffers from PTSD of any kind, don't feel like you can't click out of this presentation. I didn't put anything that's specifically triggering or descriptive, but I just want to make sure everyone's protected and safe. So, yes, don't feel like you have to stick through this presentation. So, what is PTSD? Basically, PTSD occurs when you experience a traumatic event like sexual, emotional, or physical trauma, and your brain actually changes the way you remember the event, your sort of reactions to the event, and it can affect about 8% of the American population, which is pretty significant. So some studies have found that there's been as much of an 8.5% decrease in the hippocampus volume, which is very significant, and it kind of shows you how much memory can really be affected by PTSD, considering what an important piece of the brain the hippocampus is in memory. So you can think of sort of remembering an event as being in islands of memory. So a normal person remember an event as sort of a sequential, collective, chronological list of events that they can recall easily. So certain details like the location, what happened after the event, what you were wearing, the music, they all kind of make sense to the brain as being kind of one collective. But a person who's experienced PTSD might not remember how it felt, what was said, who was there, but they might really remember the music or the smell or the date. And those details are burned into their memory, so to speak, and other details they might have completely forgotten or they might have a really hard time recalling. So semantic memory basically is the general knowledge, like you know what a bike is, you know what a chair is. But if you've experienced trauma having to do with semantic memory, your brain basically can't combine certain semantic details to make sense anymore, like the smell, like the music. So this affects the temporal lobe and the inferior parietal lobe. For episodic memory, who, what, when, where, this sort of sequence of events that happened. And with trauma, it's basically fragmented. So you can't remember exactly where you were, exactly who was there, which affects obviously the hippocampus, basic memories. For emotional memory, this obviously affects your emotions, remembering what emotions you had during an event. And usually emotional memories you can remember pretty well after trauma, but basically your brain sort of throws in out of context triggers. So you might be looking at a bike going down the street and you might start crying for no reason. And then finally for procedural memory, it's basically being able to do something without thinking, something that's basic. And basically the brain can kind of make you have a trigger where you don't even realize it, like you're stiffening your back or you're like scratching or something like that. So this actually affects the striatum, which has to do with like basic movement. So what relief can be done to reverse some of these aversive symptoms? There's really no way to fully reverse the effects of trauma on memory, but obviously therapy, taking small steps, social enrichment learning can have some pretty seriously good effects on reversing some of these symptoms in people's lives. So thank you.